Hello and welcome to Stand in the Gap. I'm Sam Rohrer, and I'm going to be joined again today by Isaac Crockett, where our transcending cultural issue for today's program arises from the common question we often hear, and that is, are there some worldviews which are totally incompatible with the Judeao-Christian or Biblical Worldview, which underpins our Declaration of Independence and our U.S. Constitution? Is the ideology and the political system, for instance, formed by Islam so much of an antithesis to our Constitution that it makes it impossible for a Muslim to honestly take the constitutional oath and then to uphold and defend the Constitution as required by that oath? Our title for today's program is this: The Constitutional Oath of Office. Can a Muslim, and I'm going to add into that, or atheist even, uphold that oath? You know, oaths of office have been features of governments of all types for centuries. In fact, in our nation, Congress and various state legislatures, they most often take group oaths being sworn in simultaneously and ceremonially. The United States Constitution requires an oath in Article 6, Clause 3, for all people elected or appointed to serve in the Congress, the state legislatures, or executive or judicial branches. Some founders thought that to require an oath of office was inappropriate because they said it seemed so unnecessary. Yet those who felt the need to do so prevailed, and taking an oath was finally made law. The current oath was adopted in primary form in 1862, and it hasn't changed since 1966. And it reads like this: I, and then the name of the person, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose or of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Well, those words, solemnly swear, support, defend, bear true faith and allegiance, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, faithfully discharge the duties of this office, and so help me God, are the key words and the promises for the oath that raise the question of whether a Muslim, or even an atheist for that matter, can actually take the oath and be expected to uphold it. Our special guest again today, Dr. Mark Christian, will walk through this issue with us. He's a former Muslim Imam, born in Egypt, now living in the United States. Dr. Christian has been a previous guest on this program as well, and as a guest on many times on our daily one-hour news analysis program entitled Stand in the Gap Today on our radio program. All of our American Pastors Network programs are available and searchable by topics and the guests by going to Stand in the Gap or standinthegapmedia.org. Let me go to you, Isaac, right off. We're talking about constitutional oaths today. And because of our guest, we're zeroing it down on Muslims because we have actually Muslims in Congress now, and this issue has come forward. We ought to deal with it. Let's go and define the terms. We talk about that regularly on this program. Whoever defines the terms controls the debate. I want you to define oath. We're talking about an oath of office. Define oath for us, please.
Let's ask the Webster's Dictionary. Webster's Dictionary of 1829. Definition of an oath: a solemn promise, often invoking a divine witness regarding one's future action or behavior. It goes on in more detail. It says a solemn affirmation or declaration made with an appeal to God for the truth of what is affirmed. I think that's key, an appeal to God. As a pastor, I think of performing a wedding ceremony, and you say, before God and these witnesses, when it comes time to the vow.
So it's not just a promise here. We're talking about something far deeper, an oath.
Yes,
okay.
Right. It's before God, with God as the witness, and it's in an oath. It implies that the person imprecates his vengeance, that's God's, and renounces his favor if the declaration is false, or if the declaration is a promise. The person invokes the vengeance of God if he, the person making it, should fail to fulfill it. And then it goes on, it says a false oath is called perjury, which we've all heard of that. So that's a pretty good definition.
Well, it is a good definition. And Isaac, I want to go here as we wrap up this segment. The Bible talks about oaths as well. One before me, I'm just reading right here in Numbers chapter 30 and verse 2. It says, if a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, which is what we're talking about, a constitutional oath, he shall not break his word, but he shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. It's the idea of what you just said. An oath, ladies and gentlemen, is a promise before God where the person making the oath calls upon God as a witness to hold him accountable if that promise, that oath, is broken in any way. That's a worldview, and we're talking about that today. Are there worldviews that don't believe God or God as judge and accountability that makes it so that they actually cannot take a constitutional oath and be expected to deliver on it? We'll talk about this more with a special guest, Dr. Mark Christian, in just a moment.
Truth, flexible or permanent? The Bible, ancient history, or powerfully relevant? Culture, a reflection of enlightenment or warning signs? The pastor, commentator, or frontline combatant? Every day, American Pastors Network speaks to these questions where and when they matter. With hundreds of affiliate radio stations nationwide, a website and mobile app screening today's headlines through the twin lenses of the Bible and the Constitution, educating, informing, equipping. This is the American Pastors Network. The time is now to stand in the gap for truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking today on this program about a constitutional oath. Now, we all are familiar with it. Every person who goes into office takes it. I personally, and I'm going to bring in our special guest here right now, Dr. Mark Christian. Mark, thanks for being with us again on the program today. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mark, on a previous program, we dealt with the issue of whether God and Allah are the same, and we're not going to go and repeat that, but I would encourage our listeners to actually go to the website on this program and listen to that program because it actually ties in with what we're talking about right now on this program. But Mark, I've been in public office for nearly 20 years. I've taken the constitutional oath 9 different times. And when I took that office, when I took that oath, personally, I can tell you that when I put my hand on that Bible, which is what I'm holding before me right now, I put my hand on that Bible and I promised to take the oath and I said, so help me God. It was doubly serious because an oath by its nature, as Isaac just said, is a promise before God. But when I put my hand on the Bible and I said, so help me God, to me, it was serious. Well, over time when I was in office, I did note that there were some members who I'd served with who were atheist members, did not believe in God. And I wondered, how would it affect them? Did they mean what they said? What would their actions be like? And I found that really there was a huge difference of opinion on how they viewed things as compared to me or others who really believed that we were making an oath before God. Simple question and big question, though. Mark, can a practicing Muslim who is in office in the United States, who has to take by law a constitutional oath, can they honestly take a constitutional oath to support and to defend the United States of America, which we know is built on a Judeao-Christian worldview, the very elements of the Constitution coming right off the pages of Scripture? Can they be expected to take that oath of office and abide by that oath?
Thank you for your question. Let me take you on a journey a little bit with me, if you can bear with me for a minute. In your introduction, your personal introduction of me, you said I live in the United States, even though that's true, but also I'm an American citizen. And to do that, I have to swear allegiance to the United States of America, and I have to take that very, very serious. And they did not allow me to do that except after a very extensive vetting of me, my background, my history, my everything, and then give me classes that I have to learn about the United States, civic education, to understand what kind of oath I'm taking. Many people, and that's not their mistake, look at the oath that they take, whether it is for office or to allegiance to the United States of America, as a ceremonial kind of event for picture ops and other things. And that is true for all of that stuff, but there is a more in-depth of a meaning of an oath. And when you look at the Islamic faith and religion, it defines the ideology of Islam, and this is according to the religion, according to the teachings of Muhammad and the sayings of Muslims till today, that Islam is faith and a state. It's called Islam is dawla wa deen, which means it's a faith and a state intermingling, inseparable from each other. When we look at the situation that we have right now in elected officials in the United States, I think the problem is really deep, because there is a very big lack of civic education in the United States of America. Because of every elected official, it takes constituents that they will elect that person to office. And there is a reason that we do not let felons or criminals that in current situation like that run for office, because we can deem them unworthy of the office. And people, when they learn about somebody who committed a crime or a killing that is taking away their integrity, then people directly, immediately do not vote for that person. And when we look at the people who are elected officials today, they do not know about their constitution, they do not know about their values, and also the church is lacking a strong education about the Judeo-Christian values, and the religious institution altogether is compromising. When we have all of that stuff together, when we come to the point that we have an elected official that was elected by uninformed, uneducated constituents, an American citizen, put them in office, then it becomes all an obligation to the elected official himself to decide which way he's going to go. And when we are dealing with a Muslim who is swearing into the office, and they insist on swearing into the Quran, knowingly, they know very well that the Quran stands in exact opposite of the fundamentals of the Constitution, taking the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of many things by itself, is completely against the teachings of the Quran, because the will of the person is coming from Allah. Even the freedom of the person that's swearing himself, the person who's a Muslim is declaring him as a slave of Allah and not even a worshiper of Allah. So when somebody is a slave swearing in to be leading the free word and the free lawmaking in the United States of America, is exactly doing the exact opposite of their teachings. Can they do that? If you can allow me, I can continue. If not, I can take your next question.
Yeah, well, kind of on that line then, let's just go this way. So right now I believe there's 3 people in Congress, our United States Congress right now, who profess to be Muslims. And I think that all 3 of them, when they were sworn in, they took the same oath that everyone else took. But the big difference, and this is where I want to get your reaction, kind of continue with where you were going, is they didn't use a Bible, as I understand it. They didn't use the Bible to swear, and they actually used the Quran, which you say actually teaches the exact opposite of the Constitution. What does that mean when they swore on the Quran?
And when I say that them swearing on the Quran, and the Quran is against the teachings of, or the fundamentals actually of the Constitution of the United States of America, this is not hatred, this is not bigotry, those are just stating facts. There is no such a thing of freedom in that, as the same way as the Constitution gives us freedom of speech, freedom of all the things that is in the Constitution. So when somebody is swearing in the Quran, that's by itself is a first step to show that this person who's just got elected is not willing to abide with the Constitution. But set this aside. When I look at the person who's taking office, I look at it as a judge who's wearing the robe of being a judge. and judging people and taking the head of the court. Somebody who is supposed to go into office, supposed to leave behind their personal views, their ideas, their everything, and just abide with the law, and they implement the law 100%. If somebody is elected to office, Muslim or otherwise, and is willing to leave behind their own personal beliefs and all personal ideas, and to abide by the law and the Constitution of the United States of America, I have no problem with that. And I think the first step is to hold the Bible in their swearing in, because the Bible is the source of the freedoms that the Constitution talks about. And they know very well that the Quran does not abide with the same laws. And then after that, I believe in when somebody swears in and they become an elected official in the United States of America, I will accept their oath at its face, but I will verify their actions. And when I see their actions are not abiding and not following the Constitution, then I will ask the real question. And there is no bigotry, there is no hatred in asking the real questions. We did this before to J.F. Kennedy when we asked him about, is your alliance when you take the office of the United States presidency, is your alliance to the Constitution and to the law and the people who elected you, or your alliance was going to be with the Pope in Rome? And he took the podium and deliberately did a conference and tell everybody that his alliance with the United States of America. At that time, it was not bigotry, it was not hatred, it was nothing of anything other than asking the real questions, because we are entitled. We are free men and women in this country. We are entitled to the questions, and we are entitled to the answer from the elected official. And if the person is refusing to answer, then they are deeming themselves not worthy of the office they are elected to.
That's very interesting. You point this issue to the point of allegiance, and you were talking about your own when you swore allegiance to the United States when you became a citizen. You know, my family, you know, my wife did the same thing when she came over from India, and so even to become a citizen, you have to do that. Is it a point of contention or difficulty for a Muslim leader to be, for example, in Congress and to swear that kind of allegiance when in the Quran it calls for violence against Christians, violence against Jewish people? There are many who, chant death to America, death to Israel, who say they follow the Quran. Is this a point of contention for somebody to be at that high of elected official and also, to say they're Muslim, but to uphold their allegiance to this country?
Well, I'm not going to be, if somebody is willing to take office, a Muslim guy, I'm not going to be in their heart, but I'm going to test their actions. So if a Muslim wants to take the office and he's decided to run for office and he was successful enough to win the election and to swear in, then I will test their actions. If they are willing to take away, and when they are serving, they are going to be abiding with the law and the Constitution of the United States of America and setting aside their personal views, their personal beliefs, their personal emotions on the side and abide with the law, then I will accept them. If not, I will ask them questions. And then comes to, like, for example, Ilhan Omar. When she is coming into office, I will take her for face value. I will celebrate her as a refugee who came to the United States of America and run for office. But when she starts spewing anti-Semitism, I understand very well where is that coming from. It is a deep hatred to the Jew that is coming from the teachings of Muhammad and the actions of Muhammad, the founder of Islam, and it is preached and in the scripture of Islam every day. Muslims say that every day, that Jews has been kicked out of the forgiveness and the chosen people from God, and now they are being downsized to pigs and monkeys or equal to them, even though they are humans. So when I look at Ilhan Omar and spewing anti-Semitism, this is not just something that I will take lightly. I will start questioning, is your anti-Semitism is because of your deep hatred and deep-seated beliefs? Then you are deemed unworthy of the office. If it is about some personal values, I have to debate that, because if you are taking one value out of the Quran, then what else are you taking? Are you going to be seditious to the Constitution? Are you going to be pushing the Dawla, which is the Islamic State? Are you going to push other things? When I see Ilhan Omar as well embracing female genital mutilation, I will ask those questions, and I will ask them seriously, because are you bringing your own culture, your own beliefs into the office? Are you abiding by the law of the United States or abiding by your own law? Even a judge is not worthy to be a judge if he starts pushing his own values. If a judge look at some person and says, I feel deep in my heart that you are guilty, I'm not going to abide by the law, I'm going to sentence you to death, this is not a worthy judge. This is the same way I have to judge every lawmaker in this country. Whether it's a Christian or not, I'm going to be judging them according to the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. I will believe, but I will verify their actions.
And Dr. Christian, I think what you just said there is perfect for our people to understand, and all of you listening here today to us. The founders did not ever put before those who would be in office that they had to profess that Jesus Christ was their own personal Savior. Now, many of them did, and they perceived it. But what did they need to do? They had to embrace a Judeo-Christian worldview that said God created us. There is sin in this world. They did believe that Jesus Christ was real, and they did believe that God was a judge who would hold us accountable. That's a Judeo-Christian worldview. The constitutional oath is the leveler, that no matter where someone comes from, if they honestly uphold that oath, then they can serve in office. That's exactly what Dr. Christian is talking about here today. But a competing worldview, an atheistic worldview, which we don't have time to go into right now, or an Islamic worldview, does hold a competing position if they hold that and they maintain that position above their oath to the Constitution. We'll wrap up this program in just a minute. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stand in the Gap is produced and recorded in the studios of WBPH Philadelphia, positively different television. To watch archives of this program, go to WBPH.org.
Welcome back to Stand in the Gap. And we're going to wrap up our program now here by going back to our special guest, Dr. Mark Christian, born in Egypt years ago, former imam before he came to faith in Jesus Christ, now an American citizen. And we're talking on this program about the constitutional oath and whether, in fact, there are competing worldviews, atheistic worldview, Islamic worldview, that can make the constitutional oath impossible to uphold. And we've talked about that a little bit. Mark, I want to go to you now and just ask you to kind of wrap up and give us some guidelines, I suppose, as we wrap up this program. Okay, we are now in a time where we do have people in office who now are Muslims, who have taken an oath, but many are taking an opposing view. They're swearing their allegiance to the Quran and Muhammad more than the constitutional oath. But we've got atheists in there too that are supporting Marxist views and that kind of thing. So what do we do in this country when we see ultimately the foundations of freedom being undermined by this kind of thing? Citizens are voting these people into office. What kind of solutions do you offer as someone now, a citizen of the United States, knowing freedom, wanting to maintain freedom? What would you recommend to those who are watching, to how we can be aware and address this kind of issue as we're seeing it?
You know, I will use the Ronald Reagan motto, trust and verify. And you need to trust everybody who's elected to elected office, but we have to verify their actions, and we test it against the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America. I'm not saying they are not worthy to deserve just because they are Muslims, because if they are Muslims and they are willing to leave their Islam behind when they are serving the United States of America, as we ask everybody else, leave behind your whatever your personal views and just follow the law. And then we were fine with that. If they are willing to bring in their own faith and teachings of their own faith, hatred and otherwise, then we have to verify that. And there is no bigotry, there is no discrimination, there is no rejection, and there is no hatred whatsoever in verifying. We do that, and we have to do that. It's an obligation as citizen that we have to do that. Then the other part is, am I saying that Muslims are not worthy of taking office? Absolutely not.
And we're going to stop right there, Dr. Christian, because we're out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, trust and verify. Know the truth. Understand what the truth is, what an oath is, what the Constitution is, and make sure that the people that we vote for can define truth and define oath and define God as our founders did, as we know they must be according to our own laws in order for them to be upheld. Communicate to us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching us today on this program, and on behalf of Isaac and I and the entire Stand in the Gap team, God bless you. Stand with us in prayer, stand with us in finances. Pray for this program. Talk to you later. Bye now.